afternoon, everybody, or good evening, everybody. How are we? Oh, goodness. Let me try that one more time. Good afternoon, everybody. How we doing? That is awesome. My name is Marcus Beelin, and I am proud to serve as the principal here at Huntley High School. It has just been an awesome experience moving into the district and experiencing the great opportunities that our students have that are available to them. There are a couple things, and we won't keep you long. I know that some people are picking up some high schoolers that are here, and this presentation will be available to you. We will have questions at the end of the that we will answer at the end of the presentation. I want to go through a couple of things for you. If you have a smartphone, what we are doing with this presentation is running questions in the background. So if you just type in this URL here, as you can see at the bottom, it will also be at the top of every single slide. So along the way, if you get kicked out or what have you, if you want to ask questions, we are running them here in the background. And when we get to the question section, in real time, we will be gathering the questions so that we can ask them and be able to answer them. If you have questions that are specific to your student, that are a little bit more personal, we will be around afterwards to be able to answer. Kind of the format of this presentation, I could stand up here and give the entire presentation, and I elected not to do that because the opportunity that you have is to be able to ask our students questions, but also hear their perspective, hear perspectives from teachers, as well as an overview and perspective from our parents. Really to kind of give you a look into the Vanguard Vision program, why we asked you here tonight, and the purpose of it. And so I'm excited to be able to share this with you. And again, if you have questions, please do not hesitate to ask. We will be sending, once I get down to the bottom of this presentation, of kind of what the next steps look like, we will also be sending this presentation and posting it to all of our websites, our middle school websites, as well as our district and high school website, so that you have access, and that will be towards the latter part of this week. So, many people have asked, competency-based education, what is it? Why competency-based? Why Huntley? A few years ago, we embarked on a venture, really, with the state of Illinois to look at the idea and the concept of competency-based education. And the reality is and at the state level of why this pilot came about, is we realized that as the state of Illinois, we're just a little bit behind. Take it how you want it. But this is an opportunity that the state decided that they wanted to hop on board and really start to advance education for our students. So I gave you a visual map here of kind of what a snapshot of K-12 competency-based education looks like across our state. So as you can see in the red, these are states that are very advanced. This was a snapshot taken back in April of 2016. These are states that are very advanced in terms of competency-based. The green states are states that are developing programs of competency-based, and the white states are ones that have no policy. The conversation hasn't even been put necessarily on the table, or it's just a thought, and we're not doing anything with it. As you can see, Illinois really stands out, and this was a recent snapshot that was taken earlier this year, as Wyoming being the only state that is not doing competency. So we hopped on the bandwagon. We moved from a developing state very quickly to an advanced state, which is awesome. We have 10 districts within the state of Illinois that are a part of this pilot. And the crazy thing about it is that the state said, here's competency. Here's the idea. Here's the concept. Go with it. I was like, okay. Well, what do you want us to do with it? And it was create structures and put some structures in place. And so what the reality is for us is that we are doing it completely different than the other 10. There's no one in the state of Illinois that's doing Vanguard like we are. Their program is not even called Vanguard. Some are doing this credit recovery. Some are doing it on a much smaller scale, and some are doing it on a little bit larger scale. But this is kind of where we are. And again, as we go through the structure of this, if you Google Vanguard Vision, you're not going to find it anywhere else other than Huntley High School. So why Vanguard and why Huntley? Why Huntley High School? We have right now 3 different tracks. Prior to competency, we only had 2. We had traditional education. All 3,068 of our students are involved or enrolled in traditional classes where you walk in, you sit down, you look at the teacher, you go through activities on a pace where you receive either an A, B, C, D, or an F, right? That's kind of that traditional model, kind of what we think education to be, right? And back in 2012, we were like, okay, we want to kind of move forward in what we're doing with education and how we're educating our students. And so to give them a little bit more choice in their education and to prepare them for post-high school, we started Blended. And our Blended program, we have just under 2,200 students, maybe a little bit more now with our enrollment. We have a little bit more than 2,200 students that are enrolled in at least one blended class. Some may ask, what is Blended? Blended is a program that we started again back in 2012 that allows our students to be able to take the traditional education and really focus a little bit more on time and place. So our students don't necessarily meet with their teacher in the classroom 5 days a week, right? They may meet on a Monday and have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday blended, where as many of you all know, our campus is a very open campus. Our students scan in and out of the building to be able to go either home or go to Starbucks or go to a place, maybe the library, where they can take the lessons that they would typically sit in front of a teacher and do, where they don't necessarily have to, and be able to kind of do it on their own time. So if I knew I had a physics test coming up, I may want to, and I know I got blended, I may want to take that blended period to study for that physics test and do the work a little later. So it's kind of like that college feel. So when people ask, like, what's blended look like at Huntley, I just tell people to just think of a mini college where students are just kind of transitioning to and from classes. Our building on a given day, if you haven't been here, our building on a given day, we have maybe 200 to 300 students that are checking out every period and going different places, as well as people that are kind of out and about in the building in some of our flexible spaces and allowing them time to collaborate as well as time to study quietly in our hub. So we added to that track with a small pilot for our competency program starting with freshmen. We have 109 freshmen that are in the program. And again, this track is one that we're going to focus on tonight so that you have an idea. So coming into high school, you have an idea that knowing that we have 3 tracks that we're going to follow along, and your student is going to be on one of those tracks. So I was trying to think of a way to kind of explain this, and it looks crazy. If education were a video game, and students, let me just be completely honest, all right? Look, I know you all are like deep into Fortnite. You all are like deep in it. I don't get it, right? I did grow up, however, with a Nintendo, only for the last like few years of my life, or a few years of my early life, where you got the cartridge and you had to like blow it in and push it and turn the power button on and off a couple times, bang on it a couple times, right? But it was easy, and it was something that was fun to play, and you just knew, like, in playing that game, in order to make it to the next level, you had to play that level over and over and over, even with the little things that were chasing you, to get to the next level. So I'm going to equate this to a video game. Again, sorry, Fortnite could not be the demonstration, but I wanted you all to stay focused, right? So let's look at semester 1. So we operate on semesters here, and in a traditional program, our semesters are, you take a class, right? At the end of the semester, you get a grade. Let's say we get a B, right? Then we move on. We know that we passed. Passing is an A, B, C, or D, right? It's not an F. It's not failing. But what does that B tell you, right? Okay, keep thinking about that. We make it to semester 2. We take the same, or we continue the same class. We get a B. Great. At the end of the year, we just know we got a B for that class. What does that B tell us? Right? It just tells us that, like, oh, we passed, and now that we can move on. Does it tell you that your student knows the information? Or students, is it I just guessed really well on the test to be able to pass, or I don't know if I know the information, I was just lucky to get by, or I copied off a friend's work. Right? So what Vanguard has done, and that's not a knock on traditional classes or blended classes, but this is really kind of what helped us craft our thinking as to why should we bring competency-based education here to Huntley High School, okay? And so Vanguard is just this, a continuum of checkpoints, which are the little green locks. And in order to move to the next level, students have to be able to show and perform on an assessment and show that they can apply the knowledge that they have been given by their teachers and that they have learned either on their own by doing research and so forth. They have to show that they have performed and have maintained mastery and have unlocked that level in order to level up, right? So if we unlock the first lock, we've moved past that competency, we're going to the next one. Now, I may do it on the first try, okay? David may do it on the second or third try, right? But this is how we know that the students are showing mastery, as teachers are able to not just say, okay, great, you filled in all of those bubbles, A, B, C, D, and F, or D and E, but you've been able to do a project or a debate or a presentation or what have you to be able to show that you know the knowledge and the skills and are able to apply them. And so at the end, once we've made all of these checkpoints, we ask our students, you know, very high level, very complex questions, and they can easily answer and be able to apply because they've taken their time where we know that they have mastered the skills, okay? Again, one of the questions in terms of our thinking is, what does it take for our students to walk across the stage and receive a diploma? Does it take a paper full of A's and B's? Or do we want them to graduate knowing that they have mastered the skills and that when they go to college, they are well prepared and they have internalized and have shown proof that they know what they're doing? That's what I want from the graduates when I shake their hand as they walk across the stage. At that point, this is what graduation looks like. We know that because that says level up on the screen, it says, congratulations, you are a graduate of Huntley High School. We know we are sending you out into the world and that you are well prepared and ready to do what you need to do because you have shown mastery and performance throughout your time here. Part of that as well is also too not focusing necessarily on the academic side of it, but also focusing on how we are developing students holistically as a whole to be able to perform out in the real world. Also, when they go to college or when they're in a career, let's say they're in the workforce, there are certain skills and attributes and traits that help them to apply to their work ethic so that they can perform at a high level. So we call those adaptive competencies, or HOWs. HOWs are habits of work and learning. Those HOWs are foundational skills that students will need to be able to be successful. And so what our teachers and our staff do is be able to help students internalize these, not just read them and, okay, I know how to collaborate, but really work this into their daily skills and daily lessons and so forth for students to be able to continually practice these traits so they, again, internalize them and they're graduating having the ability to problem solve, communicate, collaborate, and so forth. So what that looks like is, this is what I do on a daily basis. As a principal of a school where I have a staff of 250 teachers, right? And when we're sitting and we're talking in different teams and meetings and so forth, we're innovating, we're problem solving, we're producing, we're collaborating with each other throughout the day. We're listening, we're sharing ideas. These are what we do as adults. And so why not just focus, or why focus just on the academic side of it to say, great, you got A's and B's, but can you make it in the real world where you can talk to people, where you can work with people that don't think like you, that don't talk like you, that don't understand or are able to comprehend the way that you are, but understanding how to be able to work with each other and be able to perform as well as be able to produce a product. So our students go through this on a regular basis, and this is ingrained into what the work that they're doing as well as their performance assessments. So the next question is, what does it look like? I'm going to step out of the way. I wanted to give you just kind of a high-level overview of what Vanguard is, and we're going to get into now the nuts and the bolts of it. I do have the pleasure of introducing our Associate Principal of Curriculum and Instruction and Assessment, Shelly Kish. I will tell you, and I always publicly do this because I cannot stand here and do this myself, nor do I take credit for everything that happens here at Huntley High School, but Shelly does an awesome job with our curriculum and instruction and really working with our teachers and supporting, and has kind of been part of the foundation and the brain work of Vanguard Vision. So without further ado, Shelly Kish. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, and I will need the clicker. Yes, and I've also been here forever. This is my 16th year at Huntley, so kind of love this place and moved over to Talamore. I love it so much. So this has been awesome being able to work with this, and I'd like to just take a few minutes. Marcus gave you a high-level kind of overview of what it is. This is the nuts and bolts. So this is what does it look like on a daily basis. How does this look different than what your other, like if you're a student, what your friends are going to be doing? How will this look a little bit different? So first of all, like was already mentioned, we are looking to have about 120 freshmen in there. We have 100, and we had 109, 104 is what we have right now. And so that's what we're looking to have again this year. So that's how this program will actually grow and scale over the next 4 years. So one thing, I know we've already had a question. We've been checking the questions. You guys have been typing them. So feel free, again, if you have questions, to add them up there. One of the questions was about funding. This is not externally funded by anything because those 4 teachers that we have would have these same kids in their class anyway if they were out teaching in the math, science, and social studies department. So there isn't special funding for this. It's actually just the way that we're organizing the school day and how we've taken really our regular 8-period day and broken that down into, if you're up on trends in education, they're calling it micro schools, where it's almost like a little school within a school. So the kids are still going to be functioning within this 8-period day, but they're going to just be doing it in a little bit different way. So as far as funding, there's nothing to do with that, and we do plan to continue to roll this out all 4 years. Okay, so there are 4 subjects that your students would be covering while they are in Vanguard, and that's their 4 core areas. So that's their math, their English, their science, and their social studies. Okay, so those 4, that's what they're going to be covering. They will go outside of the Vanguard program, and I'll show you a sample schedule. They will go outside of the Vanguard program to still do their 2 electives and their PE. Okay, so they still get to do all the extra classes, all the fun classes. You still get to take part in all of those. This only is your 4 core areas. We do cover all levels of incoming freshmen. So our freshmen come in a wide variety. So for example, for math, we have kids coming in Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. Okay, and we cover all of those in Vanguard. We have English 1 and English 2 classes. So if you're currently in English 1 in 8th grade, then you would come in to English 2 at the high school, and you can cover that in Vanguard. Global Studies is the class for all incoming freshmen. And then biology for the science class. So one thing to keep in mind is freshman year, if you were in, or if you currently are, let's say taking maybe Algebra 1 or Geometry at the middle schools, and maybe you're taking English 1 and you're coming into a lot of AP classes, we are not covering freshman level AP classes. So that is something just to keep in mind. Down the road, you would be able to add those in. So by being in this program, this isn't excluding you from it. It's just that freshman year. If you were going to come in and be in multiple AP classes, we wouldn't be offering that at this level. All right, for the physical space, there are 4 rooms that they operate out of. Sorry, I forgot science. I always forget Zach. There are 4 rooms that they operate out of. They are in what we refer to as the Freshman Academy area, and so that is the lower west end of the building. It's a circle, and that's where their lockers are. That's where the other freshman classes are. So they are still ingrained in the freshman culture of the building. Now, for the schedule, like I said, they are covering their 4 classes, the 4 core classes, while they are in Vanguard. So here's what a sample schedule would look like. All right, so over on the left-hand side, you can see those are our regular 8-period days. Okay, so if you are in Vanguard, what you would do is, there's a couple different options. I'm just going to show you one which will kind of explain what the whole program is. But we have their personal learning time, which would be during first hour. That is called Vanguard 101, and I will explain a little more about that in just a second. But that's kind of the coaching, mentoring, that's the individual work time, the time where the teachers can connect with the kids. So that is that time. Then after that, you see how for periods 822, 833, 909, 947, all of those, that's periods 2, 3, 4, no, those are your times, aren't they? My bad. Those times, A, B, C, D, and E, actually are the rest of the students, periods 2 through 4. Okay, so everybody else is operating periods 2 through 4, the rest of the bell schedule. Their bell schedule is those periods. So it's broken up into more chunks of time. And so that's where it's that micro school feel, where they are still operating within 4 periods of the day, but they are doing it on a little bit different schedule. So students, I will tell you, you don't get to leave during passing periods with everybody else during that chunk of time. So just in all honesty, I know that's one thing that sometimes students want to know. Lunch, very important. That 11:03 to 11:50, that is the 5th hour lunch, and that's the same lunch that all other freshmen have. Okay, so that's very important to know. As part of the Freshman Academy, we do have freshman advisories, and we have a freshman lunch. You still participate in all of that. It's just that your 4 cores are in the morning. Then after you go to lunch and advisory, then you would go to your 6th, 7th, and 8th period, which would be out of Vanguard. That's where it would be your PE class and your 2 electives. We will get into more of all of the electives and what you should take and all of that in January. Okay, we have nights in January where you come back specifically to hear about all of those. One other thing that's really important, and I've already hit on the freshman lunch, freshman advisory, and the 2 electives, but the other thing is we do have 4 academies. We have our Medical Academy, Engineering Academy, Fine Arts Academy, and Global Academy. You are still able to participate in all of those because, back to this, most of those classes for the academies will be in those elective spots at the bottom. So if you were coming in and you wanted to be in the Medical Academy and you wanted to take a Project Lead the Way class, that would take one of your elective classes. Okay, so that doesn't have anything to do with Vanguard. So you're still able to fully participate in everything else that we offer. Okay, so Vanguard 101, I did want to touch base on that a little bit more. That was that first period class. That is where Mr. Beelin before was talking about the social emotional type things that we are teaching them, the habits of work and learning, the hows. That's where they are really able to take that time and focus on that. That's where the teachers also are able to work with the kids for goal setting, to help them look at what they need to do in their classes for that next week and set goals and have individual conversations with them. I will say, longtime teacher here, that's not something that always happens in a traditional class on a daily basis because, you know, if I'm a traditional teacher, I would have 5 classes. I've had about 30 kids in each class, and I would have 150 kids come through every day. This Vanguard 101 time every day gives that individual contact time. And I think that is one of the biggest things because I will say these teachers knew their kids better at the beginning of the year than any of our other freshman teachers just because we have it built into the schedule. So it's not that anybody else is doing anything wrong. It's time that we're able to build in, and they are able to focus on those habits of work and learning, which is something that we really stress. I know you'll hear from the kids later on that as well. In addition, that also gives the time if you happen to be falling behind in a certain subject area, that gives you time to get caught up. It's also, if you are working ahead, that gives you time to dive in deeper. If maybe you are in biology and there's something in, cellular respiration that just really, motivates you, then that's your time to dig in and do a little more work on that. So that's that extending time where you can really get into your interest. All right, last thing, and look at that, my timer is up. All right, grades and student feedback. One thing that I do want to talk about that is a little bit different is your normal grades that you would see in Power School for your electives in your PE class are your typical A, B, C, D, 90, 80, 70, 60. We don't want to talk about F's or D's or anything like that. So we'll just stick with the A's and B's. So your grades are like that for your other traditional classes. For the Vanguard classes, that grading system doesn't exist. So there are no number grades in Vanguard, and that would be a shift, and that's something that we teach the kids all about at the beginning, because not only was it a shift for our teachers when we shifted to it this year, it was a shift for the students as well. So what we really focus on in that is we still have the standards for the courses. So you're still going to be recommended for a course, let's say Algebra 1. We still have standards for that course that you have to cover, but instead of getting a letter grade or a numerical grade, you're going to see things like a certain standard, and then you're going to see a P for proficient, or an E for exemplary, or a NYP, which is a not yet proficient, or an IE, insufficient evidence. So it is based on a 4-point scale, but again, no numbers are involved with that. So when you look at the grade books that we have now for these students, you will see P's and E's all the way across for everything. And that is a very different mindset for the students, because in our other classes, like we've mentioned, we do have A, B, C, and D's, so it is the possibility to get a D. But we all know, we've been through school, do you really master any information when you pass a class with a D? Not really. And so Vanguard doesn't really allow for that D. You have to be proficient in all of the standards in order to move on. Okay, so that is a big shift. They still do test. However, what you've typically taken as a test would be more formative now. So what you would have taken as a math test before now becomes more of a checkpoint for you. Do you understand all the concepts? Can you do them consistently? And then once you've shown that you can do that over time, then you do a performance assessment, which is just taking some standards together and applying them. Okay, so it isn't educational voodoo. We're still covering standards in classes. It does allow for more individual pacing. However, kids, that does not mean that you can just take your old time, and if you don't feel like doing work that day, then you can sit around and, eat bonbons and kick back and relax. That's not the case. And so you still will need to maybe do work at home. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. It depends on your pacing. And you will also need to come in and do work every day. Okay, and our kids can tell you about that as well. One thing I know last year that we did say was what we've started to say now, I will change my mind on this, what we've started to say now is negotiated pace. So if you really are struggling in a certain topic, maybe math isn't your thing and you need to take, and Mr. Grabner says, our performance assessment, you should shoot to have it for September 15th, and maybe September 15th comes and you're not quite ready, then you talk to him and you say, okay, let's take a couple more days and let's set your date for this. Okay, so it is to build in that flexibility. It's not a free-for-all, because one of my favorite stories is when they had conversations with kids, I think about 4 weeks in, and they have a red light, yellow light, green light pacing system. Green light means you're ahead of pace to finish that class in a year. Yellow light means you're right on pace. Red light means you're in trouble and you are going a little bit too slow right now. Well, not a little bit, a lot. So about 4 weeks in, they were having conversations with kids saying, if you keep working at this pace, you're not going to graduate in 4 years. And to see freshmen kids facing, what? You can't tell me I'm not going to graduate. I'm only 4 weeks into my freshman year. If you continue at this pace, you will. And so it is kind of a different concept and a different way to think about things. Kind of that just check mark as you make your way through, progressing through your standards, you can move ahead more quickly. All right, so that's kind of the grades in a nutshell. I will say the grade is one of the big pieces of this, is that it is different. We will have, I know one thing this year, if you've heard anything, if you've been on the Facebook page, we have had issues with our learning management system and our grade book. About 4 or 5 weeks in, it did kind of fall apart. And thanks to Mr. Davidson, he made a grade book in Google Sheets that's now shared with parents, but that did slow us down a little bit. We are already in the middle of looking for new programs, so that should not be an issue next year. And you will have visibility right from the beginning. So that is our goal for that. So I would be happy to answer any other questions as long as the teachers, as soon as we get to the grading. Okay? And Mr. Beelin.
Oh, yeah, I got
Oh, you
awesome.
need that.
Yeah, thanks.
Sorry.
Awesome. And so what I love about this program is the ability. I stop down very often. I always joke that the lights are off in my office and are on in the custodial closet more than they are in my office, just because I spend so much time out and about. And over the course of these past 16 weeks that we've been in school, I've had the ability to go down and sit with teachers and to talk with them about kind of what's going on in their classroom and what's different and what's not. And just some of the stories that they have are absolutely amazing and just warms my heart, just even as an educator, but even as a parent, to know that students have the abilities and the opportunities that they do. I'm going to call up Mr. Grabner, Mr. Davidson, Ms. Kassir, Ms. Johnson. I want to give a huge hats off to these 4 teachers. They have been very instrumental, not only in teaching last year, but as they were teaching, they were also building a program. And if anyone knows anything about starting something, there's growing pains. And these teachers have shown some great tenacity. They've shown some great, they've been hit with some adverse situations. And they have really shown forth some abilities to really work and connect with our students. I have never seen the connection that these 4 teachers have with these 104 students at the level that I've seen it. I just want to say hats off and congratulations and thank you to you on building such an awesome program. You all will need the mic. I am going to give them just a couple of moments to really speak kind of to a few of these things in terms of teacher perspective. I do want to let you know that none of this is rehearsed. I went to them, I shared the presentation with them on this morning just to, and it was on purpose, as well as the students, because I want you to hear from teachers and students and the parents their views and their thoughts, unrehearsed, about this program and the testament and the testimony that they have about what they're doing and the work that they're doing with our students. So a couple minutes, if you all could just kind of talk about your viewpoint, your perspective, your thought from a teacher perspective, also moving. These are all traditional teachers. They taught traditional classes. Did you all teach blended? Yeah. Okay. Some of them taught blended, so they can speak now to all 3 levels of the program. So take it away.
I'll start out. I live in Huntley. Both of my kids went to school here. My son is a junior in college. My daughter's in grad school. Sorry, Mr. Grabner. That's me. If they were coming here as freshmen, I would have them in this program. There's no question about it. If I was told I had to go back and teach traditionally, I think at this point I would have reservations about that. After being in this for a semester, I think we spent about almost 2 years building all of this. This is, to me, the best thing we can be doing for our kids. The soft skills that they learn, the ownership of their learning is absolutely fantastic. The relationships that we get to have with our students that in 16 years of teaching and coaching that I've never been able to have. This, no doubt in my mind. I'm going to touch quickly on frequent feedback. What I do in math is every single assessment is graded on the spot with the student. You know, I always took a stack of papers home, and I graded them, and I put notes on them, and I handed them back to the kid, and they went, 75, put it away. And they never took the feedback that was in the document, that was written down for them. And now it's sitting with them and saying, look, here's what you're doing. I had an example the other day of a student, actually a couple students, who made mistakes with negative signs 4 different times in one assessment. And to be able to look at that and say, look, all you have to do is slow down and look for the negative signs. Don't, stop making this mistake, because it's not a mistake in your knowledge. It's a mistake because you're rushing. And to be able to identify those things and talk on the spot, give them the immediate feedback, give the document back to them and say, all right, let's get back to this, to me is a huge, huge part of this program. And I think the success of our kids going into the workforce as well.
I would agree with that. I'm Miss Kassir, social studies teacher, by the way. I'm going to touch briefly on teacher-student relationships, and then I'm going to kind of go rogue, sorry, Mr. Beelin, and talk about why this program is so fantastic as far as learning is concerned, because there are no gaps in knowledge. So I'll go there after I talk about teacher-student relationships, and I can absolutely couple what Mr. Grabner has said on that. The relationships that I have formed with my kids are 10 times deeper and greater than what I would have done in a traditional environment. And one of the things that I always pride myself on and always have prided myself on are the relationships that I build with my kids. And the fact that I can spend that extra time with these kiddos is absolutely fantastic, and I think they appreciate it as well. For example, Jo, I know, she and I can have conversations about her dance and her competitive dancing and what she wants to do with that later on in life, and how I can help her as a teacher, as a mentor, as an individual, get to those goals. How I can help her reach competencies and show mastery of certain targets and of those concepts through her own outside experiences. How I can have a conversation with Juan about how he is fluent in Spanish and how he can help other students within the program on their Spanish, and how that is in and of itself a cultural competency, and how he's meeting that through his own real life experiences. So we are able to really meet kids where they are at, and we can help them bring in their outside experiences to really give them an authentic learning environment, which I think is something that traditional environments and the blended environment does not necessarily offer our students all the time, right? You come in, you sit down, your teacher says, okay, this is what you are learning today in these 45 minutes, boom, done, give me the worksheet, moving on. Right? There's none of that authentic learning of like, hey, I did this really cool, awesome thing over the weekend. Let me tell you how it's civic engagement and action in social studies. So we can kind of bring in these outside experiences, these outside perspectives, and really make it a genuine learning environment for these kids. Then going rogue very briefly. There are, in this program, no gaps in knowledge. And what I mean by that is, in order to progress onwards through standards and through competencies, a student has to be 100% proficient, meaning that we are not allowing them to kind of like escape through these cracks, okay? And then in order to prove that proficiency, in order to show that knowledge on a performance assessment, our kids are applying these concepts to real life scenarios, okay? We're presenting them with problems. For example, our global studies most recent performance assessment was on development, okay? And we spent the last, month probably, investigating problems of development, investigating the characteristics of LDCs and MDCs, investigating how these places develop, why they develop this way, and then how through overpopulation, overcrowding, et cetera, these countries are encompassing these ideas of growth, right? And so these kids are recognizing, hey, if I look at this country profile, I can see that XYZ is a problem in Botswana, and I can tell you that by increasing the education of these people in Botswana, this is going to help them develop. Boom. So then they're writing this argument, they are writing this solution, and then they're presenting it to me. So they are solving, quote unquote, or offering solutions for real life problems that they could potentially encounter outside of these four walls.
I think to add to that, I'm Lana Johnson. I teach English. It's not only just a personal relationship, it is really a learning relationship. I think I know more about how my students learn this year than ever before. It was by chance that, and I've been teaching over the past 30 years, it's by chance that I would learn how they learn in the past. And now I get to see why they learn and why they make decisions, just like in math. Why are you doing what you're doing? And as we're writing, the students can, and reading, why does something happen? We have that opportunity to stop and talk and figure out why a character does what he does, or why someone in the news does what he does, or something that they learn in global studies they can actually use in English class when they're writing. Or when they're writing an essay, they can go to science or math or social studies and understand competencies in those areas as well as in English. So it might be one paper, but if they're bringing in statistics and science facts and social studies issues within their research in their English class, they're learning and accomplishing standards within every one of their 4 classes for the one paper that they might be writing. So it's an opportunity to see how these classes really overlap one another and they don't stand all by themselves. We don't shut our doors and only teach our subjects, but we're very involved in each other's subjects, which I think has opened up our eyes to what other teachers do, which is very exciting.
I'm Zach Davidson, teach biology. I'm just going to really quickly, since Ms. Kassir likes to talk and I never get any time at the end, I'm going to go real quick here with the ownership of learning. It is amazing. We talk about ownership of learning all the time. Traditional classroom, usually I have all the knowledge I'm going to give to you, but it's mine and you have to do what I say. And they have had the opportunity and really grown in the sense of, it's my education, it's my learning, you're there to help me, but I want to show you what I can do. I'm going to make a vlog just because I want to show you. I'm going to go and make connections between these classes, not because you told me to, because it's mine. And when they do that, it's for us, it's amazing because they're so proud of what they do. And when they're proud of what they do, they want to keep doing it. I have yet to see anybody ask me, how many points? Do I have to do this? How do I? They don't do that. They say, this is mine. And I want to show you. And here's what I did. And oh, I'm not yet proficient, but wait, I'll be back. Not what can I do, not how can I play the system, but this is mine. I value my education, and this is what I want to do. And I could give you a million stories about how they do that, but I think you'd rather hear from them, and they're coming up next.
Again, thank you all so much. They spend a lot of time collaborating at the end of the day. They have every day 7th hour and 8th hour together when the students are kind of in their elective periods to be able to sit, and they literally sit around a table and talk about the day, and they talk about the students, and they share the stories, and every day they're collaborating and shifting and making things work so that they can do some of that cross-curricular stuff. And this, again, time that our teachers in traditional classes, when we have our school improvement days and we have our PLC meetings and so forth, that teachers get together, they do this, they get together every day. They get to every day to sit and talk about the work that they're doing in their classroom and the work that they're doing with students, the successes, the downfalls, and so forth. What I am most proud of, and I'm proud to be the leader of this building, is the opportunity I get to spend with students every day. To be able to listen to them, to hear their stories. The students will tell you that I will sit at a lunch table. I eat lunch with students every day. And I also go down to Vanguard very often to sit and listen and to see the work the students are doing and their excitement. I have 5 students that are here this evening. We have some more that are part of the program that just kind of came to support. But I'm going to have them come up. I'm going to ask them just a few questions. These questions aren't on the screen. I got them right here. And I'm going to just ask them to introduce themselves. I'm going to ask them really to give you their perspective. Some of the answers and things that you will hear are just real life. Again, not rehearsed, but it's something important that I want you all to be able to hear. But students, this is your time. This is time where you can hear of students who were literally in your seats less than a year ago, right? So while you kind of tune, maybe have tuned some things out, this is time to really tune in. So students, if you could just kind of go down the line, if you can give your name. We know you're all freshmen. However, if you can give your name and just, let's see, how would you describe yourself as a learner in 8th grade, and how would you describe yourself now, today?
All right, I guess I'll start off. My name's Eli, and to describe myself as a student last year, it didn't go very well for me. I just found a lack of motivation in my learning. I didn't enjoy school. I started to, slack off, not do a lot of my work. And doing this Vanguard program has not allowed me to do that, but to build my skills into where I'm a self-driven learner and I know what I need to personally do to move on to the next competency and do what I need to do to get my own work done.
Hi, I'm Sarah Bulldog. To describe last year, I would say I was very stressed. I would stay up all night doing work to try and get that A. But I would say this year, I'm still very self-driven, but now I can kind of take a step back and relax. And instead of saying, how can I get this A, I can say, how can I really expand my learning? So that's what I've been learning this year.
Hi, I'm Juan Vidales, and my 8th grade year didn't go so well, if I'm being honest. But now that I'm in the Vanguard program, it has taught me how to be more organized than I was in 8th grade year. Now I could be a self-driven learner and learn at my own pace.
Hi, I'm Jordan. You can call me Joe. In 8th grade, I feel like I've always been a self-driven learner, but now I'm a lot more confident from the Vanguard program. I was really internal and not confident in myself. But connecting with the teachers has allowed me to be more vocal and open, and I get to sit here today, which last year I would never have done this before. So, yeah.
Hi, my name's David Willig, and when I was in 8th grade, I just tried getting by, doing the bare minimum stuff. I was still getting A's and B's, but I wasn't learning anything. How they were saying, you learn more when you're in this program, and then. Now that I'm a freshman, I feel the teachers and the connection with them have helped you. That connection helps you a lot more. It helps you learn better and get deeper into the learning, having a better connection with your teacher.
That's awesome. One of the things that and we tell our students is we want them to have kind of some of that choice and voice in their learning. And can you tell us just kind of what does choice and voice look like?
I feel having a choice in your learning really gives you the opportunity to dive deeper into it. Kind of how Ms. Kassir was saying, I'm a dancer. I dance all the time, 20 hours a week. So that obviously I want to put some of that information into my learning. So now I'm finding ways to connect angles and other things from math into my dancing, so that way I can get a more personal and advanced understanding of it. Yeah.
I guess I'll add on to that. I think that the reason I had such a lack of motivation last year is because I wasn't choosing how I did my work, and I wasn't the kid who liked to sit down and do worksheets. I like to work on projects, and what I was finding is whenever I'd have those opportunities last year to work on projects, video-based things, all new ways besides just writing an essay or doing a worksheet to show my knowledge, that's where I really shined and I could actually show my knowledge. And I think with Vanguard, I can do that with every single competency, every performance assessment. I can show all the knowledge that I know.
To add on to that, a cool thing is I was never really a person to want to do group projects. I'm always a dominant leader, but with the determination, I've been able to choose my choices how I present. So with the information, there's some people who will write papers, they can do projects, or you can even stand up in front of the class and speak, whatever you can present the information to. So my choice always ranges with the knowledge that I'm given, especially I struggle in math. So even if I do struggle, I have the choice to go to my teacher and to sit down with him and just to say, here's the information that I know, what am I missing?
And to add on to what Eli said about him liking projects, it's the same with me. I like doing projects too. In 8th grade, we had these sets, we have these standards that we do here's this and this and this, so go do it. But here in Vanguard, we have creativity. We could express our creativity in our performance assessment. And with that, I really like that option that I get to show my creativity.
That's awesome. One of the big questions that have been asked that we're kind of following live in terms of the questions that are running in the background is how do you think this will prepare you for college? That's not just college, but post-secondary life. That whether that's going into a career, whether straight into the workforce or going to college, how does that prepare you? That's the big question they want to know.
Organization. So with this program, you get to be more organized because you have all these classes and you get to learn how to manage your time wisely and how to manage your papers. Here's this, here's that. Okay, when do I need to work on this? And if I need to catch up, here's when I do that. So yeah, so if you're going to college, organization will help you.
To add on to that, in traditional learning, it's the teacher saying, here's the work that you want to do that, and you're going to get a grade based on it. But take college, when you get into college, it's not the teacher saying, here's what you're doing. It's the student deciding, okay, what am I going to do, when am I going to do it, and how am I going to do it? And to move that into life, it's all about just being self-driven, to have that determination to continue to do what you love, and to do that through college and through jobs and through the rest of your life is really shown through this program.
Yeah, adding to Sarah, I feel as a whole, teenagers get really lazy within schoolwork. I know we were all super lazy as 8th graders towards the end. We didn't want to do any of the work. We just wanted to be done. And now with the Vanguard program, we're able to know when we need to push through and get things done right away. And then also when we're not having the best day, we're able to recognize that and maybe take a step back and do something that you're more comfortable with. And knowing that about yourself will help you in the future so that you know that those days that you have to get things done are days that you have to be focused, you have to be ready to do anything that comes at you. And the Vanguard program helps us know that about ourselves.
And then to add on to Joe, for college and getting a job further on in life, in Vanguard, you do a lot of independent work, but you also do a lot of collaboration with other peers and stuff. It's a really weird combination, but it works. So I get to learn how to do stuff on my own a lot more, and then I also get the group side where I get to learn how to communicate with people in a better way. If I'm applying for a job, I'll have an easier time applying and working with my other colleagues because I know how to talk with other people through this program.
So last question. So being in this program, you're taken out of kind of the regular high school track and passing periods and so forth with the rest of your friends. How was that transition for you? And do you feel that you're missing out on the high school experience because of being a part of this program?
At the beginning of the year, I'm just going to be honest, it was a big transition. And to go from this laid out, just basically template of learning in traditional classrooms, and you're doing this, this, and this, and you've been doing that for definitely all 3 years in middle school, and you've just been doing that for the past 3 years, to go into this whole new idea of education it's a challenge. And at first, it's weird, and you're like, what is happening? You might not understand some stuff, but once you get through that and you really start to understand the meaning of the program, it goes a long way. And you start finding more out about yourself and what you can do as a learner. And I think it's so worth it to go through that change to be in a program like this.
For me, I kind of had a smooth transition just because last year I'm very determined and self-driven, so through everything I would always push through. But this year I was really able to like take a step back and to realize what I'm learning and to apply it to real life scenarios. Like especially in global, I'm very interested in just like human issues and what's been going on in the world. So I'm really able to just take myself and be like, here's where I am in the world and here's what I can apply to different people in different parts of the world. And so the transition was never too hard for me because I really liked like diving in deeper into my learning, and I never felt like I missed out being with other students. Like there's still lunch, there still are electives to be with them, but you definitely create closer bonds with people in Vanguard than you were in traditional classes.
For me, the transition wasn't very that easy for me, if I'm being honest, but like as I got like the days passed, I realized that this program will like benefit you in the long run for like transitioning to be your own independent learner rather than like, okay, here's this and go ahead and do it. But yeah, this transition is really gonna help you in the long run.
Yeah, I feel like my transition was really smooth, but it was more of the fact that I felt like I was missing out, like seeing some of my friends that like I knew before, but now I've made so many new friends that I don't feel like I'm missing out anymore. And I get to like stay in that classroom and like I know that we all share the same connection through this program, and now I get to spend like my next 4 years with them, which is exciting, instead of just having one passing period with this one person I get to see. I get to see these people all the time, like throughout my day.
The hardest part for me was probably just like the passing periods and not being able to see my other outside of Vanguard friends and like not being able to see them, but like most of them are just spending the whole time walking to the other side of the building for their other classes that you wouldn't even be able to talk to them that much. And like I'm friends with most of the people in Vanguard, so it doesn't even matter that much.
And I think that it's just, we're hearing, like you guys are hearing such a variety of answers as we go through all of us, because this program is designed for every single student. Or like, this program is not going to be, it's not going to benefit me in the same way as it might benefit Juan or Sarah. It's going to benefit us all in different ways, and the change might be easy for you, it might be hard for you, but eventually you will find your place in this program, and it'll just expand like all your opportunities.
Ladies and gentlemen, these are our students.
Shout out, thank you all so much. Thank you. You all can go have a seat right back over there.
So there are 128 weeks of high school students. Like in 4 years, like you will be on your own, headed to life after school or after high school in 128 weeks when you enter. This, just hearing this, that's only 16 weeks. Just imagine what can happen in 128 weeks of high school. It's nuts. I know I'm excited. One of the other things, too, is 2 of the students who are up here, their parents are here. And their parents will probably tell you, and they will know if their child is lying. So I'll point them out later maybe, and you can ask them if that's the case. We do have parents as well, because there's a shift in parent thinking as well. You know, as we talked about the shift for our students and the transition, there is a shift for parents. There's a shift of not seeing a report card. There's a shift of not seeing grades. There's a shift of having to communicate with your student, and your student looking at a pie chart and explaining to you that they're proficient in X number of performance assessments and so forth. And that's a hump to be able to get over. And so we have Mr. Bulldog and Ms. Gerst that are here. If you all can just come up, and they will also tell you that, yes. I've reached out to the teacher. I said, hey, I would like just 2 parents. And I'll talk to them when they get here before we start. We talk like, 5 o'clock when you all got here, and I said, hey, just give a brief overview of a perspective of you were sitting in these seats a year ago. When this program literally had no structure. Nobody was able to see anything. We didn't know what it was going to look like. And to be honest, it looks almost completely different than when it was presented. Now that we have a structure, now that we have students, now that we have teachers that have provided this, can you give your perspective, kind of where you were sitting and what it looks like now for you?
Hi, my name is Kevin Bulldog, and I am Sarah's father. And I was sitting here with my wife just about a year ago. And to be quite honest with you, we weren't considering Huntley as an option. We were considering private school for our daughter. Our older son had gone to private school and was doing well there. And Sarah, to be honest again, was very reserved and much more introverted. And our neighbor showed us pictures of passing periods, and Sarah took one look at that and said, "I'm not going to Huntley." And so she was definitely nervous about the size of the school. She was nervous about interacting, within that environment. But then we heard about Vanguard, and we heard about the learning and the competency-based learning, and we felt like, this is really designed for the way that she learns. And so that alone got us thinking. And so we spent a lot of time, my wife and I spent a lot of time talking about the pros and the cons of it. We included our daughter in that process, so Sarah was able to speak to us and ask us questions and give her perspective on what she really wanted to do. And so through that, we even considered contemplating my daughter's going to laugh at me, consulting the Magic 8 Ball. And but in all honesty, it was all through the conversation with my daughter. We included her in that, and my wife, and through that, we really decided that this is what we want to do, and this would be better for our daughter even than private school. And so we've really seen that play itself out in the first 16 weeks. When she was in middle school, she was definitely more reserved, and we've seen a growing confidence in her. And so that has definitely been evidenced in just who she is. Confidence in speaking even to her teachers. We have 3 other children that are both in high school and middle school right now. And it's like pulling teeth if there's an issue with them and a teacher. To get our children to talk to the teacher, you've got to talk to your teacher about this. And Sarah does not have that at all. One of the math teacher, I'm sorry, I forget your name, but he was talking about frequent feedback. Sarah struggled with math when she was coming up in grade school and middle school, so I was the one giving the frequent feedback. So I had to continually talk to our daughter, and we'd have to go over math. We'd be sitting up at the table late at night sometimes going through that. But that feedback that I was trying to figure out where she was missing is now coming from the teacher, and so she's getting that directly from the teacher, and I'm much less involved in her math, and she's just flourishing in that right now just because of that. And I will say, too, I'm sensing a growing social development in that as well. I talked about the Howl. I own 3 different companies. I employ about 25 different people, and I see the ones that don't have the social skills, and it's a struggle. I've told other people that work for me, I don't want to hire the people that have A's. I want to hire the people who have common sense. I want to hire the people who are problem solvers. I have people working for me that I've got to hold their hand all the way through, and I've got people who are problem solvers, and I rely on those people much more, and the people I want to hire are the ones that are problem solvers, and the people who have not book smarts but have street smarts or common sense. And I feel like this is really helping to develop that. So she's developing that whole idea of common sense learning. And I will say that the one social studies project she did do, her and I had talked about what her response was going to be, but it was all based on what Ms. Kassir had said. It was all, how is this affecting the world now? And so her presentation became on, how do these different global issues affect that particular country, and it's really hands-on important learning rather than statistics of population or education. It was really what is this country facing, and how are they able to handle that? And so it's really, to me, practical learning rather than book smarts. It's all practical learning. So I've seen my daughter grow just in the 16 weeks. And I will say our next son is an 8th grader right now. And at first we weren't sure if we were going to put him in there. It was good to hear just tonight that they could still be a part of the academy because he does want to be a part of the engineering academy. But I really like the idea of them getting involved in their learning, because right now we're spending so much time trying to keep him on track. And the whole idea of having 4 kids and looking at Power School to see where they're missing. Okay, why is this missing? How come you have an F here? How come this isn't? So we're really involved with them, whereas Sarah, we don't get those reports from Power School, but she's emailing us every Friday. Okay, here's where I'm green light, so I'm ahead of schedule. Here's where I'm yellow light, where I'm right on schedule. I'm a little bit behind in this one, so my plan this weekend is to work on this to get me up to speed on this. And so rather than my wife and I logging on to Power School and trying to figure out where everybody is and why this is missing and what do we have to do, it really comes from Sarah rather than us trying to pursue and track down where they are. So again, that's another thing that we're really kind of excited about, because I feel like it's a part-time job to try and keep up with each one of our students as we have 4 children. So I've really seen a lot of growth just in the short time, and really looking forward now to my next son coming forward and developing the skills that she's learning, because he, I think, is needing some of the skills that she's learning, particularly in that social environment and the scheduling. So.
My name is Kelly Gerst. My son is in the program, and he's not here tonight because he's been sick. And ironically, last year at the same time, he had the flu, so there must be something with this week. But anyway, I was actually glad that he didn't get to come, because then I'm like, you're doing this program, yay. And he was on board, and we did some research, but I did a ton of research before I signed him up. And I'm in HR. I've been in HR for over 20 years, and I get kids out of college, and so I work with them in management tracks. And everything that you have said today and all the teachers have shared and the students that are learning, that's what we go back and teach, right? And what you just said, the social, emotional intelligence, collaboration. So those are all the things that when I heard this, I was totally on board. One of the things that Dr. Rowe talked about last year was if you were on a plane and the pilot said, yes, I got a 9 out of 10 on the test. The only question that I missed was the landing. Would you get on a plane with them? And then I was sold. I'm like, we're signing up for this. So this school is huge, and my son, eighth grade, all 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, he did great, and he got A's, and but I really don't think he was challenged. And to be honest with you, kind of 2nd semester of 8th grade, he was pretty dialed out. And they had called and said, can he do some independent learning? And he was thriving, like, oh my gosh, Mom, this is so cool. I can, do a research project on this. And then a light bulb went off in my head, because he said to me, these worksheets that we do, he goes, somebody posted it on Snapchat, and if you're out that day, here's the answers. Well, you're not really learning. I mean, yes, you might get an A, but you're not really learning anything from that. And I've heard so many parents too, obviously the school is big, after, freshmen, oh my gosh, it's so overwhelming. And then my son comes home and he's like, oh my God, Mom, this is awesome. This is everything. Well, of course, because they're in a group of 110 students rather than the large number. And these 4 teachers are, I can't even say enough good things about them. They are amazing in everything and all the hard work. I mean, I know they spend so many hours preparing and everything that they've done, but they have definitely changed him for the better. I mean, I would consider all 4 of them second parents to him. They probably know more about him than I do at this point with his freshman year, but the social emotional piece, I mean, there's so much stuff in adolescence as they go through, even beyond academics, that is just as important as academics. And that's the thing that was huge for me, because I think Ms. Kish had said with these teachers that have, they have 30 kids and they have 5 classes, they don't really get to know the kids like they do in Vanguard. And that, I think, is amazingly important. The other thing, and I know the students talked about the stress. So my son was the one that was midnight. I'm like, why are we still up? Oh my gosh, I have all this homework. And it's not like that because all the teachers talk. And so back in 8th grade, I remember he had 4 tests on one day, and he said, Mom, I just wish the teachers would all talk so we wouldn't have 4 tests on one day. That has never happened in Vanguard. In fact, he's had more free time, which has been awesome because he's less stressed. He's more focused. I've never heard him say, I don't want to go to school. In fact, he's like, oh, break is coming up. That's kind of a bummer. And I'm like, what? But he loves it so much, and he loves learning and just the way he has learned to work in a group. I know last year working in a group was stressful for him. But this year, the collaboration they teach and the cross-correlation that they've all talked about between science and math and English and global studies and how I even seen a difference with him at home and how he's cross-correlating things, but truly getting excited about school and about his learning. And I can tell you just from the work world, because this is what I do for a living, it's out there, and this is what we're lacking. I wish the whole school at one point could be like this, because honestly, this is where it needs to be. Not only that, and I know a couple of my friends, when I left here, said, oh, my son or daughter would never do this because they're so disorganized. My son is organized in his head, so he's not organized on paper. And so, I'll be honest with you, in the beginning it was a little bit rough because he's like, I don't know what to do, but it was such a learning experience. And now they have these great charts, and he knows he can take ownership of it, and it's him taking ownership. So it's his control. And there's something about adolescents in their own control, they thrive way better. And so, like you said, it's not us getting on them. They send an email every week on Friday and let us know about their learning, and he actually looks really forward to that. And then it helps us talk. I had never gone, I went to conferences K through 5, and this year I went, and it was the most amazing conference I've ever been to. They know our kids in and out. They were telling me things that I didn't even know about my son. So it was so great to hear and how much they care about our kids and really get to know them and really have that bond. And they're not just saying it, it truly is. They really have an amazing bond with them. So I can't say enough good things about the program. If anybody has any questions, like he said, this is all unscripted. We're just, I found out about this like an hour before I came, so that's why I have my little cheat sheet. But not only that, the furniture, I know we talked briefly, not everybody wants to sit at a desk all day, so they have high-top furniture, they have couches. It kind of looks like a lounge room. It's really nice, and that has been huge for my son, because he's like, sitting at a desk all day is just hard. So they have different passing periods, and when we went to the open house, I said, how is that when the bell rings? He's like, oh, you totally, it just, you don't even think about it after a few weeks. So as a transition, was it hard for him? A little bit, but like everybody else has said, it's been the best experience, and I would highly, as a parent, recommend it for the kids and for all of you to look into. So thank you.
Cool. Thank you all so much. Truly appreciate you all being here. We are almost done. One of the things, again, this is a critical moment, and I've had a lot of people email like, hey, how long is this? Like, I always tell people, like, when it comes to your child's education, or even students, when it comes to your education, we take the time that we need. The fact that you all are here, parents, hats off to you. I know I've sent a ton of emails. There are 727 freshmen that are coming. There's not 727 freshmen here, but you all decided that you all wanted to be here to see what this is about, to hear what it's about. This is what we have and what we do. I will tell you, again, as the leader of this building, I will not stand in front of you and lie about your students' education and the future. My goal is for our students to be prepared to compete globally in our workforce, to go to college and knock it out of the park, and be future leaders that are going to take our society to the next level. And so whatever we can do, whatever we can craft and drive what we do here to cater to the ever-changing demographic of our students, we will do that. We don't just throw it up and say, well, let's just throw it up on the wall and see if it sticks. That's not what we're doing here. We're not taking your student's life and gambling with it. We're not taking your student life in terms of education. We're not gambling with that. We are definitely, again, it's well thought out. We spent an hour and a half today just talking about new processes and so forth to incorporate. I will tell you that by this program being a pilot this year, there are a lot of things that we are learning that we're crafting and changing over time. Just like Ms. Kish said, we had times where, for example, our LMS completely failed, but we have students in our class tomorrow, and how do we adjust to that? And so we will make the adjustments that we need for our program to be successful, for your students to be successful, and for us to be able to produce in 128 weeks amazing products into society that you can be proud of as parents and that we can be proud of as educators. And it's not just us that are doing the work. We actually had a conversation today, just at our principals meeting across the board, of looking at what this looks like at the 8th grade level, at the 7th grade level, and at the 6th grade level. Because we're seeing some of the benefits of this, and what does it look like for our other students, and why can't we offer this to our other students? So as you, again, this will be out via email, and as you start thinking about this, and you may answer yes or no to some or all of the questions. I don't want you to think that there's a perfect puzzle piece for your child or a perfect formula for your child to be able to fit into this program. We have students that came to us with above 4.0 GPAs and 0.7s and everything in between. We have students that were very organized, students that were not, students that school is for them and school is not for them. And we figure out how we can work with them and meet them where they are and be able to bring them to the level that they need to be. So I also want to say hats off to the middle school and to the middle school teachers that have given us the challenge, but also given us the opportunity to be able to carry forth just the foundation that they've instilled in them for them to be able to do this 16 weeks into their high school career. So hats off to all of our middle school teachers as well. So what next? We have a form. At this point, again, you're like, where's a handout? I like to conserve trees and keep them standing. So we don't print out a ton of paper. So please take a picture if you would like. Again, this will be emailed out to you. What next is, and I want to explain this very explicitly, as well as for those that will be watching this. Again, we'll post this presentation. What next is, if we have a form to make a commitment to the program. Take some time, talk with your student, and think about it. You have time. We're getting ready to come up on a 2-week break. Take that time to really talk about it. Look at this presentation. Share it with people who you think would be interested. But this is the link you will go to. It will lead you to a Google form where you'll put in some real basic information, just some acknowledgments about the program and kind of what you're committing yourself to, and you're on the list, okay? Now, there are 727 freshmen that will be attending Huntley High School next year, and our program, just as we stated, about 115 to 120 students is kind of where our cap is. So I do want to let you know, if we have more students interested in the program than seats that we have available, we will have to do a lottery, okay? Here's how that will work. I will be sending out a reminder on January 4th about this to make sure that you have filled in the information on that sheet if you would like to be put on the list. On January the 11th, this form will be closed and we will not be taking any more names onto the list for enrollment. On January 14th, which is a Monday, and all of these dates again will be sent out, on that Monday we will take that list and we will go through a random generator to be able to place numbers. And I do not do all of this by myself. I don't look at names. I don't say, oh, well, this person is a student or this person that we know. We don't do any of that. The lottery is the lottery. We will go ahead and number every student because between now or between the lottery when it happens up until the first day of school, things change, people move, and we want to be able to start our program very strong. with the number of seats that we have, and we want to fill all of those seats. And so we will go down that waiting list if necessary. But you will be notified on the 18th of official enrollment. You'll receive an email from me that says, hey, congratulations. You will also receive an email from me if your student didn't get in within the lottery and there's a waiting list. We will send an email to you as well. Please look forward to the emails. In the enrollment form, it does ask for an email that you check regularly, okay? Because I just want to put out there, I don't want people to get like, that's not that's the email that we're pulling from PowerSchool. So if the email in PowerSchool is correct, please make sure that that's the email that you indicate on that form, okay? I know I know there are some people that do need to leave. You are more than welcome. Again, before you do, I totally appreciate you taking the time to really invest yourself into your students' education. We are going to answer some questions that we've been kind of running in a live background to be able to answer. We also have our students, our parents, as well as our faculty here that will be around to answer questions. We'll probably go for about maybe 10 minutes or so, and then any further questions that you have, you're more than welcome to come up and talk with us. Yes, so the first question is, how does Vanguard grading system translate into a GPA for college entry?
Big question. I saw it multiple times throughout the stream in the back. Here's essentially how this breaks down, okay? So when we send your sons and daughters' transcripts to college and say, okay, here they are, they're proficient, exemplary, etc. Colleges have their own quote-unquote way of translating it into a GPA. So we take out that step for colleges, and we translate those proficiencies and exemplaries for your student before their transcript gets sent to XYZ college. Okay, we've talked with University of Illinois, we've talked with Northwestern, we've talked with ISU, we've talked with big name schools about this, and they said, yes, it's fine. Okay, so there should be absolutely no worry about how this is going to translate over. Proficiency, for example, we have set that at a 3.33. So we say that if your student is proficient in every single competency across the board in geometry, for example, they will walk out of geometry with a 3.33 GPA. Okay? For every exemplary that they get in XYZ competency, every exemplary counts as a 4.0. Okay? So then that would then re-average in, so if you get one exemplary, the rest proficiencies, that then increases your GPA, if that makes sense. What we've done is we've gone through and we've looked at these standards, okay? And so the standards are the same in traditional classes as they are in competency, as they are in blended. All of our standards then structure into our curriculum in every single track of learning, okay? So based on these standards, we say at this level, at this standard level, we would expect a student to be receiving blank grade in a traditional environment. For us, we're saying they would be achieving at a high B, because we do expect students to understand a standard 100% completely. So based on that, we would say, okay, you would be receiving a quote-unquote B in a traditional environment. So then that averages out for a student to receive a GPA for them to go apply for colleges and apply for college scholarships, if that makes sense. Second big question that I saw was about IHSA eligibility, about school activity eligibility, et cetera, et cetera. Same scenario. We meet every 7th and 8th hour together, and we go through all of the list of students who are in IHSA curricular activities, who are in other sports, other clubs, et cetera, and we say, okay, based on where they are at, based on their pacing, based on their proficiency, are they eligible to participate in their extracurricular activity? And we go through and we say yes, 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 no, 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 depending on where they are at, et cetera, et cetera. And those are conversations that we have with your student throughout the time, saying yes, you are proficient, or yes, you are eligible, or no, you are not.
Another question, does Huntley have data comparing competency-based programs with traditional programs and SAT scores? That is one of the metrics that we are looking at to put in place. Our students will be taking the PSAT on April the 10th. We actually don't get that data until probably about October or November. That is the metrics that we're looking at. That's part of understanding this being a pilot. Like, we have to start somewhere in order for us to get data. letting that full year kind of go by for us to be able to utilize that data. That is something that we are so anxious and excited to be able to receive that data when it is available. But that is one of the metrics that we will use to help us evaluate this program.
Honors classes and blended classes. As far as honors is concerned, as I was stating, we have gone through and we've looked at those standards, and we are addressing the same standards in each of our courses that our traditional classes are addressing. So we do not have a honors course within Vanguard. That, however, is translated out into their GPA. So that proficiency level, again, we're saying, okay, if you are proficient across the board, you are 3.33 GPA, which is achieving at that B+ level. As far as blended courses are concerned, absolutely they're electives, they can take a blended course. Not a big deal. That is also wrapped into their scheduling and how this is all finagled together for them to be in Vanguard and in electives and in blended classes electives.
Additionally, there were some people who asked if we can meet with someone to assist with deciding in this program. Just like I stated, and I open the doors, please do not hesitate to contact the high school and schedule either a meeting with myself. I'm not available, knowing that the break is coming up and kind of some of these conversations need to happen. I will be kind of fielding questions and pushing them out either to our counselors, Ms. Kish, some of our teachers, depending on kind of what those needs are. I will be in over the Christmas break, so please do not hesitate to email me, and I would love to set up a meeting to sit and just kind of talk with you if necessary. Also, if you have further questions that don't get answered, I know there are some people leaving. I want to let you know that my contact information is out there and available. And again, there are questions that will come to me that I may forward on, and you may see a response, but you will receive a response back. But all of those questions, again, will come in to me. If a student is, during the year, is determined that, like, this program is just not for me, part of the enrollment form is understanding that this is a year commitment. It takes some time for our students to be able to adjust. We don't want people to come in and say week 4, like, oh, this isn't for me. Like, it takes some time to be able to kind of work through. There's some foundational things that our teachers put in place as they're kind of working through and setting our students up with this mind shift. And so we at least require that for their freshman year, that they be in the program. We don't off-ramp students during the year into regular traditional classes at the semester. We typically want them to stay in. We do have some students, and the reality is we have some students that are like, yeah, this really isn't for me. It's not wasted time for them because they're still working just at the same, with the same content, if you will, just in a different format that other freshman students are doing. And at the end of the year, if you're like, hey, this is really not for me, then we talk about the other 2 tracks that we have, which is our traditional and our blended track. Can a student graduate early if they work fast? Our program typically isn't structured. There's some requirements with the state that students must meet those requirements. If we get to that point, we currently right now have freshmen. Next year we'll have freshmen and sophomores. There are some bridges too that, to just being completely transparent, that we just haven't crossed because we don't have students at that level. So that is a discussion and something that, you know, we will talk about once we get to that level. Not to say that that's off the table. We have students that early graduate all the time if they meet the requirements in order to do so. And this program will not hold them back if that is a route that they potentially could go. But again, we'll get to that as we move further up.
Are there finals in Vanguard? As your traditional final exam, some of you are giggling, Gina, with your traditional final exam where you sit and you take a test for 85 minutes and then you turn it in and you're like, oh, there it is, that's 20% of my grade. That concept completely goes against what this program is about and the foundational pieces of this program. So those types of final exam testings do not exist in this program. Instead, during your final exam hour, however, you are still in here. You are working towards whatever performance assessments you need to complete. You are working towards progressing further on within your coursework with whatever teacher you are needing at that period of time. So it's kind of flexible. We have scheduled in for this finals hour. There's 4 hours that you're in Vanguard, you're seeing all 4 of your teachers, you're working on all 4 of your subjects, but you are continually progressing towards that proficiency, that exemplary level.
That covered most of the major questions. Again, we will be around. I do want to let you all go. Again, I thank you all so much for being here and taking the opportunity to, again, invest. Students, thank you all so much for being here as well. Again, if you have questions, this presentation will be available towards the end of the week. The form is available if you type in and you want to go ahead and enroll now. And we do have staff and students that are available here up front if you have any personal questions.